Hi, folks. This is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report. You know, I don't think the report would be complete unless I talked about Black Lake. And this last weekend was the Dash for Cash, held for so many years now in Black Lake. And people in that area look forward to this a lot. They had 108 boats take part. And Jigger Jim and his son Seth came in 8th. He was pretty proud of that. But here's what's really interesting. This Dash for Cash is very similar to our Big Bass Blowout. In other words, they pay so much for the biggest fish each hour. And here was the thing. In this day, they had 3 largemouths brought in that were over 6 pounds. Now, that's pretty impressive. 6.6, 6.5, and 6.1. And what does that tell us? You know, we rave about the wonderful fishing in the St. Lawrence River, but nearby Black Lake, and this water from Black Lake eventually does enter the St. Lawrence River in Ogdensburg through the Oswegatchie. It flows into the Oswegatchie and down into the St. Lawrence. But 3 largemouth of that size is pretty doggone big. You know, whenever we have a tournament in the St. Lawrence, and we have a 6-pound bass brought in one of the weigh-ins, our eyebrows raise and we think, wow, aren't we lucky to have these big bass? Well, Black Lake is pretty special too. And I asked Jim, I said, you know, what were people using? He says, oh, I don't ask them what they caught their fish on, because he isn't running the tournament. He's taking part in it. But he said that for them it was chatterbaits and spinner baits and Senkos. Now we're talking about different ways of fishing. Senko is a very still-like presentation, whereas when you're using a chatterbait, it's very similar to a spinnerbait. It's always been so for me, but of course it's more subtle than the flash and bang of the blades on a spinnerbait. And then jigs were popular. You know, all the ways that you would fish bass this time of the year came into play, and people had a great time. And again, it shows the loyalty and the enjoyment that people have of Black Lake. It's its own special fishing world over there. And I asked him if anything else striking happened. And Jigger Jim says, well, only that a brand new Fenwick rod and reel are now sitting at the bottom of the lake. And I says, tell me more of the story. And he says, I'm not going to. You can just say that Jigger Jim lost his rod and reel. So there's always things that happen every time we go fishing. We always have fodder for stories that we can tell. And I think that's such a big part of fishing. But anyway, I congratulate the folks that held the tournament in Black Lake. Ali at the log cabins he took over the tournament, has for several years, and I want to congratulate him on putting together something that so many anglers really enjoy. To have 108 boats in something is really a big deal. And I'm not amazed. I'm always pleased to hear all the wonderful fishing in Black Lake. As I was speaking to Jim, he said, you know, today, he said, the fishing was as dead as he could remember in the lake. Nothing was happening. He went out to fish for crappies. And he said most of the people fishing crappies now are up there in the Indian River, along the ledges, he said. But he didn't have all that much luck. So you just never know. You know, this time of the year now, most of the people that are fishing the lake are probably going to be fishing for crappies, or smallmouth folks. They know that this is the hot time of the year, starting in a couple weeks in Black Lake for smallmouth. The smallmouth fishing will really pick up big time, and I think it will be the real feature of the lake until wintertime, until ice fishing begins. But don't ever forget Black Lake. It's a wonderful place. So until next time, folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report.